Welcome to the latest Seahawks Draft Log live stream. Rob Staten here reacting to the Seahawks' big win against the Washington Commanders. A very easy win in the end, and we're going to talk about it. It's just a solo mission tonight. So basically what I'm going to do, because it is 4:23 in the morning, I will go on as long as super chats are coming in. And once I've got through all the super chats, I will call it a day. But we'll talk a bit about the game. We'll talk a bit about the trade deadline as well, which is coming up on Tuesday, because that's been a big talking point. But, you know, what a performance that was by the Seahawks. And in fact, before I start, I've got to remember we are 80 shy of 11,000 subscribers. So if you've not subscribed yet and nearly half of you watched the videos and not subscribed, please do that. Hit the like button, leave a comment after we've finished. Press the hype button on the app as well when we're done as well. Really appreciate all of the support. So what a win that was. I mentioned on the Seahawks Collective this week, because of all of the injury issues that the Commanders had got and some of the issues there, and the fact that Jaden Daniels was just coming back, that it would have been really disappointing to lose this game. It would almost feel a little bit like a reality check. So for the Seahawks to go to Washington, D.C. and not just avoid losing, but to go and absolutely hammer them 38 points to 14. And in a weird way, it felt 38-14 almost flatters the Commanders. It could easily have been a lot more than that. The Seahawks only scored 7 points in the second half, as did the Commanders with that garbage time touchdown. But when you have taken a 31 points to 7 lead into the halftime break, the key really isn't to sort of keep going and score 60 points against a team like the Commanders. You might do that against a really, really bad team. But against the Commanders, I think it's just about making sure there's no way back, that Jaden Daniels does not have any opportunity to get his team back into this game. And that's what the Seahawks did. The defense was excellent again. You know, this is the great thing about this defense, is they are not, as much as we all want them to have that amazing pass rusher, that game-changing pass rusher who will win you a game in the fourth quarter, and maybe they're going to need that down the line. But it's the fact that all three levels of this defense work together so well. The coverage tied to the pass rush and vice versa, to create their pressures, to force opponents to really struggle to get anything. And, you know, it wasn't perfect today. There were a couple of drives that were maybe a little bit easy for the Commanders, but that's going to happen. It's the NFL. But ever since that Tampa Bay game, and I remember doing a stream with Puck after the Tampa Bay game, and he was a little bit worried about the defense. And, you know, when you look at it after that, the way they played the Jaguars, the Texans, and now the Commanders, I think they're the three games. You know, that is a bounce back from this defense. And they've bounced back without necessarily having everybody back and at full health. You know, Julian Love's still not out there. He is still a big loss because of his experience, his leadership, and his talent. Devin Witherspoon, that was his first game back. They lost Ernest Jones in the game. We'll talk a bit about that. So to do this again without being completely 100%, and that was Derek Hall's first game back as well, I think it's real credit to Mike McDonald, to Adam Dirty, to these players. You know, Leonard Williams again is having another outstanding game. Nick Manwari again. To me, I'm sure PFF's going to give him a 38 grade or something. I thought Manwari looked really good. I just was really impressed with the way that defense played. I can't believe I've started this talking about the defense and not Sam Darnold, because that first half, you will not see a better first half performance from a quarterback this season. Just perfect. 17 out of 17, I think it was in the first half, 4 touchdowns. Just incredible. The two big plays for me were the third down conversion, which was a 3rd and 5, but the way that he had to just sort of buy that extra bit of time and then throw awkwardly to Jackson Smith and Jigba. This was before the Cody White long touchdown catch and run. That was an amazing third down conversion. It's just such a remarkable play that probably won't get talked about all that much, but there's no 60-yard touchdown to Cody White without that third down conversion. It was such an impressive play. That's the kind of play a top quarterback makes. And then the other throw that really stood out to me was when it was the first touchdown to Torrey Horton, because it's awkward. Like he gets on the move because there's a bit of pressure there. He has to reset his feet. He's leaning back a little bit, but still delivers a pass that most quarterbacks wouldn't be able to deliver if they had perfect base and were throwing with the body weight forward. And he's leaning back a little bit. And it's not just the velocity that he generates from that throw, despite the unideal positioning and having to reset his feet. It's the accuracy as well. It was not a wide open throw to Torrey Horton. It feels like a long time ago, that first touchdown now. But it felt like it was reasonably good coverage, and he had to throw it to a certain spot to allow Horton to make the play, and he did. And that's third overall pick physical talent that you've seen on a throw like that. Now, it's a shame he had to blot his copybook with the interception, because it's a really bad interception in the second half, and that was a shame. But apart from that, that was just superb. And that chemistry that he has with Jackson Smith and Jigba, this is another game where the Commanders will have said going into this one, we've got to have a plan for JSN. We've got to be able to do something. We can't let him just take over the game. And yet this is another opponent who's probably gone in with that opinion and has had absolutely no idea what to do. Because JSN, let me have a look at the stats here. He had 8 catches for 129 yards. It's just incredible how inevitable JSN has become in games. Yeah, I can't remember a time. Steve Largent was way before my time of following the Seahawks. I can't remember a time when you had a receiver in the NFL and you just knew he was going to get yards. I mean, I think back to, Doug Baldwin and Curse and players like that. It wasn't inevitable they were going to get yardage. There were games where they didn't, whether, it'd be a Marshawn Lynch game or Russell Wilson had throw it to Luke Wilson or somebody instead. That was how that offense worked. With DK Metcalf, it'd be up and down all of the time. Tyler Lockett he was a very consistent player, but, not to this extent. It feels like every single week now, this relationship between Darnold and JSN, he's going to be able to find his receiver. He's going to get 100 yards. It's incredible. When we did the Seahawks Collective this week, no, it wasn't the Seahawks Collective. It was Real Hawk Talk with Brian and Jeff. And we put like a little bet builder together, and we had to pick, one thing that we thought was definitely going to happen. And I picked JSN getting plus 95 yards. He got 129 because it's inevitable. There's nothing you can do. He's going to get it. I can't remember the Seahawks having a receiver like that. I just can't. And the other thing is, he's doing it without sort of the physical talent that obviously DK Metcalf had, looking like a Terminator. And he's doing it without the sort of, electric speed that maybe, some of these other receivers have. He doesn't look like Calvin Johnson. He doesn't look like Mike Evans or Julio Jones. And yet he is just so unbelievably talented and makes it look easy. It just makes it look so easy. It's just been a joy to watch him play this season. And he and Darnold, wow, what a combination that is. I think it's been great to watch. And do you know what? I want to say this before I forget. Clint Kubiak has been such a good hire. And people can go on, and I'm already seeing it. People complain. Like one of the first comments I read at the end of the game was like, we've just watched the Seahawks hammer the Commanders 38-14, and someone's complaining about the running game not being good enough. We really don't have to worry too much about that on a night like this when Darnold's playing as well as he is. Yes, we all want to see the run game be a lot better than it is. They'll continue to work on that. I've absolutely no doubt. But when your quarterback is throwing for 330 yards and having 4 touchdowns and 17 out of 17 in the first half, the run game's kind of an afterthought when they're playing that way. So I'm not too concerned about that. It's not as if the run game looks like it did last year. I think Clint Kubiak has just been fantastic. And, someone's mentioned, Albert's mentioned in the comments in the chat, that New Orleans should never have let Kubiak leave. He's absolutely right. And the Vikings should never have let Sam Darnold leave. I know that JJ McCarthy was the quarterback for a great win today in Detroit, but Sam Darnold's still better. I mean, they didn't win because of McCarthy. He was part of he played well, about 150 yards passing in the end. That's not the only thing. He moved around. He made some big plays, made a big throw to ice the game. Sam Darnold's a better player. And the Seahawks have capitalized on that. So I just think it's great. I think it's so good to be sat here a year on when this time last year we were starting to talk about whether Ryan Grubb was going to get fired already. And there was so many issues and the offense was all over the place and it wasn't connected to the defense. And that it's all gone. And I'm really enjoying watching Sam Darnold and JSN. Not just them, obviously. Torrey Horton, fantastic to see him get a couple of touchdowns. A big fan of Horton going into the draft. I don't understand how he lasted to round 5. I know that there was sort of the injury concerns, but I bet if we pulled up a list of players who were drafted in rounds 3 and 4, for example, we'll find 2 or 3 players who had injury concerns, maybe even receivers or character concerns, let's say, as well. And to allow Torrey Horton to drop to round 5 is just crazy to me. I gave him a second round grade, late second because of the injury. I didn't think if he was completely healthy, he would have been a firm round 2 grade for me. And the Seahawks have got him in round 5. And today he showed exactly why. He is just such a talented player. And what a pick by the Seahawks. Fantastic. And then to see some of these other guys doing well as well. Elijah Arroyo getting his first touchdown pass today. Great to see that. There's so much more to come from him. Emin Warrior's playing obviously very, very well. Gray Sable's been really solid again. So, I just think that's another thing that it has to be said has been fantastic from the Seahawks. Is this draft class is continuing to the Robbie Hoots back in the team today. Should also mention that. So really pleased with all of that. And the fact they didn't have Cooper Kupp was barely noticeable, really. The offense stepped up to the plate and had its best passing performance of the season, even without Cooper Kupp. So well played to them for that. Just having a look at the stats to see what else I'm maybe missing before I get to the Super Chats. 4 sacks in the end, half a sack for Jaren Reed and DeMarcus Lawrence, half a sack for Chenna Nwosu and Byron Murphy, 1 for Leonard Williams, and 1 for Drake Thomas, which is sadly the situation that led to the Jaden Daniels horrible broken arm injury, which looked really awful on replay. But all the best to him. The lucky thing is, if you can ever be lucky breaking your arm, is it's his left arm, not his right. It's not his throwing arm. So you'd imagine he's going to be able to make a full recovery from that. But yeah, not what you want to see. Leonard Williams, I don't know what it's going to take for Leonard Williams to get the attention that he deserves. Maybe it's motivating him, and we shouldn't want that. Because the way that he's playing, just hair on fire every week, chasing down Jaden Daniels. What a play that was to force the turnover on downs. Just absolutely fantastic. What a play. What a player. The Seahawks have for years have kind of had to deal with these teams that have had amazing interior linemen. That Aaron Donald, obviously, huge fan of Calais Campbell. The Niners had Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner for a long period. And, for us to now have Leonard Williams, that is just so good. It's so good. And long may it continue. I think he should be in the mix for Defensive Player of the Year. If Patrick Surtain could win it last year, then Leonard Williams should be able to win it this year. Because it's not like Surtain. Like Surtain had a very solid, consistent season at cornerback. It's not like when, these defensive players get 20 sacks. He just had a very solid, classical Patrick Surtain season. And you could have argued he's one of the top 5 defenders at any position in the league. That's Leonard Williams. So I think he should be in the mix for him. Someone has asked if the Commanders got any sacks, or if the Seahawks gave up any sacks today. They did not. They gave up 0 sacks and only gave up 2 tackles for a loss on the whole game. So it's very, very impressive performance from the Seahawks offensive line. Right. I am going to do Super Chats first, and then I'm going to talk about the trade deadline, which I did do a video about earlier today, but I'm going to rehash some of it now that they've played a game. CCW 9091. Big thank you for that very generous super chat. That is the way you start a game and finish it. Absolute domination. Hope Jaden Daniels is okay. And now, John Schneider, go make a trade or two. This team is good enough to make a Super Bowl run, and please beat the Rams. Thanks, Rob. I think I've been waiting for a game to sort of think, yeah, do you know what? Maybe they can go on the kind of run. This is the closest we've come to that kind of a game. I think if they can beat the Rams in a couple of weeks, whenever that is, that's the sort of the game I'm waiting for, to really think, yes, they can go to LA, beat the Rams, they can beat anybody. But this was definitely a game circled, especially with Jaden Daniels back in the team, to go and win. And they didn't just win it, they absolutely pasted the Commanders. So really good. Thank you for that super chat. Very generous. Ian says, we have the football team and executive team ready for success for the next 6 years. I agree with that. I really agree. I'm a bit worried that Clint Kubiak's going to start getting a bit of head coach chatter, because there are going to be teams that are looking for head coaches next year. And some of the names that are being linked are not as good a coaches as Clint Kubiak. And I just think it's inevitable he's going to get linked there. He is not the most dynamic talker. He may not be the best interview as far as, I have no idea, but I don't know how much you get swayed by charisma in those meetings versus knowledge, experience, ability to describe a vision. But I'm a bit worried about that. But apart from that, everything else is in place. You watch some of these other teams, and they're an absolute joke. Like, look, with the greatest respect, even look at like a team like the Jaguars have got a winning record. You just think, is that franchise really? They've really got the right people. The Raiders, the Bengals, like the structure for the organization at the Bengals is so crap. You run through all the Titans are a mess. Like, there are so many teams like that, and it is good. As someone who has constantly kind of over the last few years thought, is this team going in the right direction? Are they ever going to move on from Pete Carroll? This time last year, questioning a bit about John Schneider after the offensive line performance. It is clear that they've got the right people in charge, and it should never be taken for granted. Like, knowing that and feeling like you can just focus on the football is such a big deal. Big Mike says, support for you being up all night, Rob. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Mike's a big supporter of the blog and the channel, so thank you very much. It's 4:40 a.m. You can probably tell my voice. I am knackered. Like, I was knackered at about midnight tonight, and I thought, wow, this is like really hitting me now. I'm 41. Like, staying up till this late, but I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to sleep with the game going on, so I've got to watch it. Mr. Latte says, we got a Barnyard TD. We did get a Barnyard TD, and I love the name Barnyard. I'm a big fan of that. I know some people don't like it, but I'm a big fan of Barnyard as the nickname for that particular play. Big thank you for the super chat, Mr. Latte. This one from Silk Monkey. The finish of this game was what the Texans and Cardinals game should have been. Yes, I agree with that. But I'm very grateful, given the time that it is here in the UK, that they finished this game very differently today. Because I think the Texans game was definitely a late one. I can't remember if the Cardinals one was or not, but the Texans one, that was like that finished half an hour later than it should have been because of that pissing about the Seahawks did. So thankfully, much better this time. Josh says that was the best O-line performance in years. I didn't spend a lot of time focusing on the offensive line, but 0 sacks. Run game was okay. I think it's definitely a lot to be pleased with there with the offensive line. Mike says, for the first time since March 8th, 2022, the Seahawks are relevant and it feels great, says Mike. Odium says, want to make sure I remember that amazing Okada interception. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry if I've not mentioned that. What a fantastic play that was. To go up and get it at the highest point, right by the sideline, with an offensive player draped all over you as well, and to have the sort of awareness to just get that toe down, and the toe strikes in bounds. Like a millisecond before the knee's out of bounds. I mean, it's such a fantastic interception. Like, what a first interception for your career like that. And he has played well after a bit of a ropey start against the Buccaneers. He's playing well. And I've been talking about, going and getting Minka Fitzpatrick if he's available because of the Julian Love injury. And I suspect the way that he's playing, they're not going to do that, because if they can get through the next 4 weeks, then again get Julian Love back, then that will be more than enough. Mr. Kim the Builder says, got a free super chat. Here you go. Thank you very much. I thank you for sending me the free super chat. I really appreciate that. Jeremy Yanasak says, we might have something in Okada. Yep, he looked really good today. Again, PFF will probably give him a 20 grade for something stupid, but I thought he looked really good. Hawks fan Matt Mann says, I'm not a big Schadenfreude guy, but seeing Darnold's season versus Geno so far makes things even sweeter. It does. And, I had a bit of a back and forth on this earlier. I wouldn't say that I am a Schadenfreude guy or that I'm not. It's just, I think there were a few of us, and I know this because, these are the conversations I'd have with people via DM and on WhatsApp, who just got a little bit sick of people saying, if you do not agree with what certain other people think about Geno Smith, then you don't know ball. And I hate that phrase. Like, it's just all opinions. And for whatever reason, this is the kind of crazy madman I am. I ended up watching some highlights of games from the last couple of seasons. And once you watch one, the YouTube keeps chucking you the others. And I was a bit bored. And I watched a couple of games. And, it just kind of reminded me what Geno Smith was doing in Seattle. There were the Rams game last year. I watched that at home. There are some amazing throws from Geno. He has physical talent for days. He can do things that a lot of other players can't do. He also does the most annoying, frustrating, stupid BS turnover nonsense and near turnover nonsense that you'll see. And that's why he has as many interceptions as he has this season so far. And it's why at times today he looked absolutely freaking awesome. And there's also at times today when they lost to the Jaguars where he had a terrible interception again. And that hitch at the end when Tyler Lockett's wide open is, for me, maybe he's doing the hitch because he's anticipating that the defender's going to jump up, and then by hitching, the defender just times it and jumps at the right time or whatever. Whatever you want to say about that. When I first watched that, and I've seen a replay since, his hitch stops him getting it to Tyler Lockett. And I don't think there was anything wrong with the opinion of most people last season, which was Geno's not the worst quarterback in the world. He isn't a top 10 quarterback. He's a fair enough bridge, but at some point he will become too expensive and you will not be getting value for money out of that. And what he wanted this year was to get a commitment. He wanted somebody to go, you are our quarterback, and we're going to pay you to be our franchise quarterback for the next 3 years. And the Seahawks were quite right, not prepared to do that. There was nothing wrong with sort of keeping him as we're going to play this by ear every year quarterback situation. And, your salary, while ever you are the starting quarterback, is going to be good, but we reserve the right to move on. And he didn't want that. He wanted something more. So off he goes to the Raiders, and that's fine. But there were people acting like if you didn't think Geno Smith was a top 10 quarterback, you didn't know what the bloody hell you were talking about. And it was a collection of people on Twitter who were very, very vocal and repetitive and banged that drum constantly and acted like everybody else was bloody stupid. And I just don't think that was right. And they were well within their rights, obviously, to think Geno's perhaps better than some of us did. But I don't think they had any right to tell those of us who thought he was streaky or that he had amazing physical talent mixed with some crap interceptions that we didn't know what we were talking about. And what we have seen since he's gone to Vegas is the player that he is. He's probably going to have a better second half of the season, frankly, because Brock Bowers, if he stays healthy, Brock Bowers is an alien sent from planet tight end. I mean, he is just amazing. Like, he is one of the best players in the NFL. And he was unstoppable today. Just crazy good. What did he have? Like 3 touchdowns in the end. I mean, just unbelievable player, Brock Bowers. If Brock Bowers was playing for the Chiefs or the Bills or something like that, with a top quarterback and high octane offense, he'd be destined to have a surefire Hall of Fame career if he stayed healthy. Whether that'll happen at the Raiders, I don't know, but he's just that special. He's a special player. So I think Geno's probably going to have a better second half to the season. But he was a streaky player, and they've moved on Seattle to Sam Darnold, and he himself is a little bit streaky. Like of the interceptions he's had, some of them are like, oh, for God's sake, Sam, why have you done that? Like that was a bad one today. But he's just making so many good throws, and he's unflappable, and it's his kind of his personality and his attitude. There's no finger pointing at anybody. We're not going to go over history with this, but there was a bit of that with Gino in the locker room after games and on the field, and the pouting and the moaning and the I'm going to pretend I'm injured in training camp to prove a point because I want a new contract, all that bollocks. Like, I'm glad we've moved on from all of that. And I know I'm talking about it again, but that's what the super chat was talking about. I think it is the thing that is making it most satisfactory for me, at least, and I think to a lot of other people, is that there were so many people who were patronizing and annoying about, and smug about their opinions about Geno Smith, and they've been given a custard pie to the face. And really, they should just, they're saying they're owning it by saying that they're now acknowledging that Sam Darnold's been better this season. Well, yeah, Christ, the sky is blue. What are you going to say next? They should own up that they got it wrong. Like, we all have to do it at time to time. I've done it plenty of times over there. I've written full frank articles when I got something wrong. Even when I didn't get the Jalen Carter thing right, I wrote a bloody massive apology in case I did, because I wanted to own it straight away. Sometimes you just got to own it. Josh says, would you pay JSN this offseason or take the 5th-year option? Well, I think they will take the 5th-year option. While they're negotiating the next deal. But I thought it was interesting that Brady Henderson replied to Brian at Hawkblogger, who he put a tweet out saying he didn't think it was necessarily the case that JSN and Witherspoon would be paid next year. And I, to be honest, when I read Brian's tweet, I agreed with him, because they have not been paying people 2 years before the end of their contracts run out. They typically wait a year and then do it. That's just been the rule. Now, I think there have been exceptions over the years. I don't think there's been that many. But Brady Henderson basically said, no, they're going to pay JSN and Witherspoon. So I think that's coming next year. Charles Cross, I know everybody expects he's going to get paid a massive contract. I personally wouldn't do that. I'd play out the year. If he plays so well next year, I franchise tag him. The franchise tag, I think, is not going to be astronomical for left tackles anytime soon, because there just aren't that many amazing ones who are sort of really pushing the boundaries of what you earn at the minute. So I'd play that one by ear a little bit. I don't think he's played well enough to sort of think this is the guy for years on $30 million a year. So I would play that one by it, but I suspect they probably won't. I suspect they'll probably pay him in the off season. But to answer your question, I think they are going to pay him. Would I do it? I don't really care. Like if they keep him, if they wait 12 more months and piss him off, that won't be the best thing to do. If he wants paying next year, bloody hell, he's going to deserve it if he carries on this way. I'd be tempted just to get it out of the way, keep him happy. The Darth Soldier says, do you ever think that it's not the quarterback, it's the team? Look at every quarterback we've had recently. Wilson, Geno, Locke, Darnold. They thrive in Seattle and play like crap when they leave. I think obviously different staffs. So like Wilson was the Carroll era completely. Geno has been a bit of both. Drew Lock has not played particularly well, if we're honest, anywhere. So I don't think that's right necessarily. I'd say he's played well in Seattle. He had one drive against the Eagles. And then Darnold is playing very well. But Darnold played very well in the Vikings as well. So I don't think it's necessarily that it's just something to do with Seattle. But I think Wilson was unbelievable talent. I hope that we can get back to remembering that rather than sort of recency bias of what's happened the last few years. I think Geno, Geno worked well for a period in Seattle and did a job. And Darnold is thriving. But I think this is more like Darnold's career renaissance really started when he was in Carolina, and it's just built and built and built, and we're benefiting from it now. But definitely there's been some good coaching along the way. KJ says, I feel you trade draft capital this year for a left guard or linebacker depth. You have something going on with cap room. Thanks for all your work you do in the off season, and this is as fun as it's been for a while with the Seahawks. I completely agree about it being fun. I think I don't know if anyone. I've not been checking that. I've been on the super chat, so I don't know if anybody has said anything about Ernest Jones yet. Oh, okay. Curtis has. He says, Mike McDonald says it doesn't look like Ernest Jones' knee injury is season ending, but he could miss some time. So that's, I was hoping he was going to say, we took about as a precaution because we were well ahead. So that is not good news. I think they have to do something at linebacker. I just think they do. It was already thin. Now you've lost your best linebacker. Drake Thomas is playing well. I'm not sure I trust Tyrese Knight. And behind them, there's nothing. So I think you've got to look at sort of the Quincy Williams at the Jets, Logan Wilson at the Bengals. I personally would ring the Jaguars, and Devin Lloyd didn't play today because of injury. I know he had that sort of 2 weeks where he had all the interceptions and everything, but that's kind of died down a little bit now. And we've got to remember with the GM in Jacksonville, he is from the Rams. He is used to working with Les Snead, and Les Snead will pay every position except linebacker. Like his 2 linebackers this year are dirt cheap. He won't pay Ernest Jones. They do not want to pay linebackers big money. And if the GM in Jacksonville has adopted that approach, then the chances are they're not going to pay Devin Lloyd, who is out of contract in the offseason. So I would put a call in and just see, can we do something here? Because I think even if Ernest Jones can come back, there's nothing wrong with having Devin Lloyd, and he's quite a versatile player, can wear a number of different hats for you. So that is something I'd ask the question as well. I'm sure there are some others. The biggest concern with the linebacker stuff is the Niners are going to be sniffing around as well. Like, you are going to have to compete with the Niners in all likelihood for a linebacker because of Fred Warner's injury. Left guard, obviously the right guard position is the one that people are most concerned about with Anthony Bradford. I think there's a chance they're going to do something there because Ian Rappaport says they're looking at that. Diana Rossini, Jordan Schultz have said they're looking at that. I think it comes down to what's out there. Like, is renting Kevin Zeitler for half a season better than having the chemistry with the 5 you've already got? That's kind of what you've got to ask. You know, I know people want Jackson Powers Johnson from the Raiders. I gave him a second round grade going into the draft, and obviously he went in the second round, but people were sort of talking about him as like a top 20 pick. I never had that. He's like flavor of the month at the moment. His zone blocking grade this year and last is decent. It's in the 70s. So he could be a fit schematically. I still think he's like a big potato. He's shaped like a potato. He doesn't get his arms enough out for me and extend and block with his hands. There are too many blocks where he kind of just runs into people, which was what I saw at college. I really want to. For me, I like mauling, hands-on guards, and he does do a good job in space. He is explosive. He is an explosive tester. So I'm not saying he's. But I mean, I had him in round 2. I just didn't have him in round 1, which is where everybody else had him. And I'm not busting a gut to acquire him now. If they do it, I'm not going to complain either. But I'm just sort of running through the players that people are talking about. I don't think there's any chance for Peter Skronsky or anything like that. But right guard is obviously an area that they seem to want to add something. And they wanted to bring in Dalton Risner in the summer. So they clearly wanted a veteran there. Mr. Kim says, guess we don't need to scout quarterbacks for a few years. I mean, I'm still doing it every week because I think they're in the luxury position now of, okay, you've got one, but if you get a chance to draft and develop another, why not? We've seen how that's benefited the Niners over the years. So I think, yes, I would still keep looking. There's 1 or 2 in the upcoming draft who are not going to go very, very early that I think you consider later on. So I think we should still scout them. I don't think we should just ignore the position. Chase says, appreciate what you do, Rob. Thank you, Chase. Appreciate that. E-Pulse has got banned from field goals 3 years ago because I said that Geno Smith turned into. Well, I'm not going to mention that bit inside the red zone. Hi, Mucky. Well, yeah, Geno in the red zone obviously is not a winning combination based on what we've seen over the years. And Hulk Smash says MVP. Reek for Jalen Phillips. Go Hawks. I'm not sure the Dolphins would do that deal. It sounds like they're going to get something for Jalen Phillips that is reasonable, like a third rounder or something. So we'll see. But thank you for the super chats. And if there are any late ones, send them in. I will squeeze them on. I'm just going to sort of wrap up now with a couple of thoughts on the trade deadline. So the more I think about it, the fact that Schefter mentioned Boya Mafe potentially being someone they'd be open to trading along with Reed Woolen makes me think they've got a target in mind, that they really there's like a pass rusher who they want, but they know in order to get that person in, they need to move somebody on. Otherwise, there's going to be a huge backlog, or they're prepared to take on the backlog, but if you're acquiring somebody who is possibly not going to be just an 8-game thing, plus playoffs, hopefully, touch wood, then you're probably not going to pay Boya Mafe. So get something for him now rather than hoping you get comp picks down the line, stuff like that. I think that's what the situation is. I think they've got the right on somebody. Now, who could that be? I still think there's a chance it could be Trey Hendrickson. Like, he's the one that the Bengals lost. He's the one who people are saying couldn't now be available after all. That one would make the most sense in terms of who is actually going to be available. They are not going to acquire Myles Garrett because that would cost like $100 million to do that for the Browns, and they're not taking on that dead cap hit. Max Crosby, I talked about 3 weeks ago. I'd love to think he was available. The stuff that you read about the Raiders is that they don't want to. There seems to be that the Raiders don't want to pull the rug out from under Pete Carroll. That they feel like their roster's not very good, and that if they were to trade away someone like Crosby now, they would make it almost impossible for Carroll to succeed this year. So therefore, they're going to keep hold of him, and that if they keep losing, it's probably more likely he gets traded in the off season. So that's something to consider with that. I think if he was available, they would rush to make a deal to go and get him. Obviously, they inquired in the off season. I think they would love to have Max Crosby. But it doesn't sound like he's available right now. If he was, I'd do it. I'm just not sure. Financially, the Raiders can do it. The dead cap hit is nothing. It's like $5 million this year, $5 million next year. So they can do it if they want to. Be a big offer. But I think that's probably one that's more likely in the off season if they don't acquire a pass rusher now. So that's sort of that. I think they've got their eye on somebody though. There's somebody that they want, and that's why they're open to moving Boya Mafe. The linebacker situation with Jones's injury, they might have to put a few calls in there. Weapons, I'm not sure they're going to go down that route after Torrey Horton here, but you just never know. Jay Glazer did say they were looking at being aggressive at a number of positions. Offensive lineman, I've trying to talk about the options. I think it's a Kevin Zeitler type thing or nothing. I think that's it. But they're gonna. It sounds like they're going to do something. I mean, Jay Glazer he's connected. He knows John Schneider. When he speaks, you listen. He doesn't chuck out a lot of stuff every week. This was when he name-checked the Seahawks being aggressive and at different positions as the first team he mentioned today. My sort of eyes lit up. I was like, this is going to be an interesting 48 hours. I better carry my laptop around with me because this is at any minute now they could make a deal. And John Schneider was actually asked before the game about the trade deadline on the radio by Steve Rabel, and he said that he was at Indiana against Maryland yesterday scouting, and because obviously that's down the road, so I wouldn't read too much into the fact that he was at that game in terms of draft prospects. The game was down the road, so he's gone and taken a game near to where the Seahawks are playing. But there was a whole bunch of teams there, and I've got the team. Somebody sent me the tweet. Let me try and find the tweet. there were a whole bunch of teams there, and Schneider he said, we went to the Maryland Indiana game yesterday, talking to a bunch of teams. We'll continue to have conversations the next 2 days. So we're in, and we'll see what's shaking out there. So according to somebody else, the teams who were at that game were the Seahawks, 49ers, Jets, Panthers, Browns, and Commanders. So are the players on the Jets? Their right guard used to be in Baltimore. Not the best zone blocker, but that's one possibility. Panthers, it's hard to think who they could acquire from the Panthers. Browns, obviously they've got Joel Bitonio. I still don't think Wyatt Teller's going to be an option because of what happened with Nwosu, who is a highly popular player in Seattle. Commanders, obviously. I don't see who they'd be acquiring there. So, and they're probably not going to do a deal with the 49ers. So maybe it's not that interesting that those teams were there as well. Maybe they're just sort of sharing info on who could be available. So there we go. I think that's quite interesting that, he's talking about the trade deadline. Jay Glazer's talking about it. Schefter's talking about who they might trade away. And it's going to be a very interesting next couple of days. So I promise you, if there is a trade of any kind, I'll be reacting to it. I'm hoping we haven't done a show with Jeff live in a while. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to do one tomorrow. That would be at, let me think, what time would that be at? That'd be 1 p.m. Pacific time. You can watch it back whenever you want. Maybe there'll be something to talk about tomorrow if we do that stream. And if we don't do a Jeff show, if there is a trade tomorrow, I will do an instant reaction. Obviously, Tuesday, I'm with Bump and Stacey. And I'm also on the Seals Collective, so ample opportunity to talk about trades on those two media appearances, and SealsDraftBlog.com. I'll do written reaction to everything as well. So there's going to be a lot going on. I would just say, if you are not subscribed to the channel yet, please do subscribe. Let's get it up 80 away from 11,000 subscribers, and half of you don't subscribe that watch the video. So if you've been sort of holding back, do me a favor at 5:05 in the morning UK time and hit that subscribe button and join this show. And if there are any trades over the next couple of days, you won't miss any videos from it because you'll want to absorb as much content as possible. But SeahawksDraftBlog.com as well for analysis, written analysis. We've got one last super chat coming, unless any more come in, from Cairo18. This is just a thank you for all you do, Rob, and staying up so late into the morning hours. Much appreciated, Cairo. I really appreciate that. I appreciate all of the super chats, all the people who watch, great listen live numbers, all the people who are in the community on SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Final request, subscribe as I mentioned, like the video. After it's finished, go and leave a comment in the comment section. And when the stream is finished, if you have YouTube, the YouTube app on your phone or your tablet, go onto it. You'll see the little hype button. Press that. It will hype the video, get more eyes on it, and that will mean a lot to me. So, great win for the Seahawks. Fantastic. Back atop the NFC West. 6-2 now. Motoring along nicely. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye for now.